Step aside, Annabelle. Roll over, Barb from Dummy. Get frickered, Chucky, who this movie kind of takes a lot of your beats from, but I still preferred. You're still cool, Slappy, but go away. It's M3GAN's time to shine. Or M3GAN, it's like 5 Cream all over again. M3GAN is the latest horror movie from Blumhouse that is honestly way more funny than it is scary, and honestly that suits me just fine. And truly, every time I look at her, I see Chuck Esme, the animatronic doll that they thought was a believable vampire baby in the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 2. Horror comedy is one of the finest combinations to exist, and I'll take it in all its forms, from the more focused on the funny and the more focused on the scary to those perfect blends like the original Scream. Get my Jennifer's Body shirt out and everything. And one would think it seems like the horror commitment, or at least the gore commitment, would have been higher if they had kept it at the R rating. I'm happy with how this turned out. It's not perfect by any means, but at least a lot of the moments of like sentimentality add to the comedy compared to something like Violent Night, which just felt like 2 completely different movies edited together in someone's basement. Point being, I had a ton of fun with M3GAN. It's intentionally comedic, which some people may not appreciate, but like, guys, we saw the dancing scene. That was everywhere. Like, we knew what we were getting. So you can kind of like take it on its face value as like the comedy with the horror edge and this creepy little doll running around killing people, but then it's actually kind of doing a little bit of work with screen time in kids and over-reliance on devices and tech, childhood trauma, grief, and attachment, and all these new AI concerns we'll be facing. But it's not looking at any of those issues in a particularly serious way. It's not trying to make anybody feel stupid, but it gets pretty real at times, and it's honestly a little bit more of a horror movie for parents than anyone else. I don't think any of it was particularly shocking or surprising in terms of plot points, though some of the kills were certainly very creative and there's definitely still some tense moments to be had. But mostly she's just like a little Terminator that sings. But you know, it is scary not being able to access region lock content. But thanks to today's sponsor, Surfshark, that's a problem no more. So I was trying to catch up on Attack on Titan and noticed, oh no, Canadian Netflix only has 1 season. But that wasn't a problem because I just connected to a Japanese server so my internet would think that's where I was, and boom, every season. Surfshark has thousands of different server locations all around the world that you can quickly connect to across all your devices with 1 account. So if you find out that a movie or a TV show that you love is on Netflix but not in the country you live, just look up which country it is on, connect, and you're good to go. So let Surfshark open up your world, because life's just too short not to have full access to the world's entertainment offerings. It's super fast, secure, blocks unwanted ads, and if you use code JEDI, you can save a whopping 83% off your subscription plus get 3 months free. And if that wasn't good enough, they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not completely satisfied, so make sure to click the link in the description down below to try out Surfshark for yourself. So this is essentially the same writing team as Malignant, which I did not love because I didn't feel like it committed enough to the camp and ridiculous moments. And while M3GAN has nothing on that jail scene and does still have some like inconsistent moments tone-wise, it just doesn't suffer the same disconnect that I felt from Malignant, so good job to Akela Cooper and James Wan. Though M3GAN definitely has some moments that feel like they're played a little bit too straight for the more off-the-walls highlights, I still had a blast. I just feel like it's missing like one little thing to really knock it out of the park. Performance-wise, Allison Williams does everything you need her to do, but the kid, Violet McGraw, she did amazing. She sells everything you need in this movie in exactly the right way. And that does a lot for a movie that's entirely centered around her connection with M3GAN. Like, these kids actually feel like believable kids. Some of the other characters might seem a little bit goofy off the cuff, you know, like yelling about kombucha, but it fits the tone of the overall movie, so it works out. It's also prime for memes and cosplays, which we're already seeing all around the internet, which is like everything a movie like this could ever want, so wins all around. And while it definitely would have been great with its R rating and just like the fact that Universal saw the reaction to the trailers and were like, oh shit, I guess we need to make sure teenagers can see this worldwide. So then they did a couple reshoots to make it work as a PG-13 movie, but honestly, M3GAN has so much audacity that I don't think it necessarily needs the R rating. I don't necessarily think the R rating would have made it any more scary. It might have let it steer in a little bit more to these really ridiculous scenarios. But based on what I've read from like the screenwriting, it really would have just been adding more gore to some of those kill scenes and probably probably adding in a few more kill scenes that I think Universal wanted them to pull out. I don't think that's absolutely necessary, and we still get a lot of really outlandish and at times shocking kills. Basically, don't go into this expecting to be super scared unless you're just a very naturally jumpy person or just looking at M3GAN in general creeps you out. But if you're going in for a horror-tinged comedy, this is for you, because I laughed so hard at times. I've seen some discussion that there might be an unrated version in the pipeline for like the home release at some point, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I've also seen this movie described as the most for the gays movie without a single gay character, so take that for what you will. I think this is a movie that you're probably gonna want to catch in theaters or at least with some friends, because I really feel like that good crowd energy just makes it all that more fun, and I also felt that this held up to a second theater viewing, which is always nice to know. It also held up to a second theater viewing, which is always very exciting, so while not the most scary, it was definitely entertaining. So that's about it for the total spoiler-free aspect. Let's hop on into some light spoiler thoughts before we dive into the story. Now, originally I thought that M3GAN was going to take a completely different angle than what it did. I hadn't watched any of the trailers or the teasers. I did see the dance clip gif online, and then I think the one of her pulling off the sunglasses, so she just gave me the vibe of this very posh and bratty thing. So for some reason, I thought that she was going to try to replace that kid. But making M3GAN this militantly protective replacement parent is a super interesting angle for it to take, mostly because it brings up a lot of issues outside of what M3GAN's actively doing. Unrelated to that, I would love to see a Toy Story-esque version of this movie where the kid keeps aging, but like the M3GAN android can adapt to the kid no longer needing them in that same way and in that capacity, and it can't evolve to that, and then getting really scary about it. So let's hop into the movie so you can know all my stupid thoughts and spoiler time, I guess. Also, the second time I saw this movie, there was a very interactive group of high schoolers, so I can let you know which scene got the best reactions from the youths and which were the most concerning. So right from the get-go, this movie lets you know what it's doing. It starts with comedy. It's poking fun at the idea that parents don't like to take the time to work their kids through the hard things like processing death, because now they can fill that void with the perpetual pet, which basically looks like a more sophisticated Furby that can poop. Which cuts us to Katie, spelled the Mean Girls way, so I'm gonna want to call her Catty the entire movie, but she has her own perpetual pet just as her parents get into a fatal car crash on the way to a ski lodge. And I knew the crash was coming because they just stopped in the middle of a road in a snowstorm, but it was still very tame. Like, the screen motion and audio didn't make it feel heavy or impactful, which I thought was weird, but it definitely was because her parents are dead. But it definitely was, because her parents are dead and she gets sent to live with her Aunt Gemma, who you may recognize from Get Out, who also happens to be the creator of the perpetual pet. And for some reason, Gemma insists on keeping this kid that she absolutely doesn't want. And definitely not remotely equipped for. A therapist comes through to watch them interact, and the level of ferocity in which she opens her collectible toy so she's not judged is just so intense. So things aren't going great until Katie sees Bruce, a robot that Gemma made in college, and essentially makes the comment that if she had a toy like that, she'd never need another toy a day in her life. So we're going capitalism off kids' trauma route, baby! Woo! But that comment alone is enough for her to restart the M3GAN project her team was told to abandon because they were supposed to be rushing out a budget version of the perpetual pet because a competitor ripped them off for half the price with Furzy. Again, it's just an intricate web of Furby knockoffs. It's amazing, I love it. Now, my favorite part about this is that her like 2 engineer employees are suddenly willing to risk being fired and or sued to put aside the perpetual pet to finish M3GAN when their boss specifically told them not to. And I mean sued for like hundreds of thousands of dollars for allocating company money away from the intended projects. All in the words of a kid saying she'd never want another toy in her life. Questionable, but yeah, I think this thing would be a grand success. Especially when they get to market all the benefits for parents.
She'll never run out of ways to keep your child occupied, and she'll never run out of patience.
And in 1 week, they finish her. Mostly, there's no time to set up parental controls or teach her how to deal with death, which seems like an oversight considering you're giving her to a kid whose parents literally just died in front of her. Because that's the other part of M3GAN. She bonds to her primary user, which is the child, and then adapts around that kid to learn. Meaning that Katie is instantly turned into a test subject. So many levels of wrong, least of which is that she was recently traumatized. But hey, career advancements or whatever. But I just need to take this moment to comment on M3GAN's M3GAN's hands, every finger a thumb. Obviously, they love M3GAN. She's perfect, but the pitch for her? So it goes through all the normal stuff, like how M3GAN will help encourage positive behavior so you don't have to get fed up that your grody kid can't remember to flush the damn toilet or wash their hands. M3GAN will take care of the little things like education and bedtime stories, making sure they eat, and more.
She'll take care of the little things, so you can spend more time doing the things that matter.
I love it. It says so much. Some people just really shouldn't have kids. Literally, the only person who raises any issues with this is the other engineer, Tess, who blatantly points out that they've essentially created a parent replacement and how that might have larger implications specifically for this situation with Gemma and Katie, which becomes an even bigger issue when M3GAN turns herself back on to ask about Katie's parents' death, because of course she turned herself back on. They always turn themselves back on. And then she gets to learn about death and all the horrible things that humans do, so we got some real Ultron business going on here, but better, because Ultron in that movie sucked. And this is where Gemma designates herself the second primary user. So instead of adapting to the good and innocence in Katie, she's taking that and Gemma's more detached attitude, combined with her learning all about humans killing each other off for personal gain and protection, and it's morphing into this very different version of what was intended. So this is where things flip very fast. I was still thinking we might get a child replacement story here, because like Katie's outside playing and M3GAN's just not engaging with her, but she still goes to help Katie find a toy and then gets attacked by the neighbor's dog. And then the back of her neck literally sparks, the eye does this dilation thing, and I feel like this is some kind of like programming full flip inside M3GAN. So that combined with pairing with some of Gemma's personality types is going to completely change how she engages in her function. Because Katie also gets bit in the attack, M3GAN knows the owner isn't going to do anything, Gemma openly threatens to put the dog down, so M3GAN lures him out at night and kills him. Normally, I hate it when movies injure any animals, and I don't love that this dog dies, but the movie doesn't show anything, not even the body, which I appreciate. Also, if this woman loved her dog so much, she would have him inside the house with her and not outside where he was barreling through the fence hole. But as problematic as M3GAN is getting, Gemma's still a shit guardian. Kid gets bit by a dog, is on antibiotics, and she's just like, hey kiddo, you up for another demonstration today with the big investors? You can say no, but there's people who've literally flown in from all around the world to see this, so it's really important, so you kind of can't say no, but up to you, child. And it goes terribly, but in a way that goes wonderful for Gemma. Katie has a total breakdown, and instead of stopping the entire thing, Gemma just stands there floundering before M3GAN steps in and saves the day by saying that she'll save anything Katie ever tells her, so she never has to worry about forgetting her parents. And everybody claps. Literally, the execs are salivating at the many ways this toy can handle children. But this also ended up being one of the more hilarious moments, because this bitch just starts singing her a song. If you should feel alone. So here we are in theaters, sad for this kid who lost her family, pretty horrified at the implication of what Gemma's using her for, then immediately pulled into a fit of laughter. So this leads to Gemma renegotiating her contract as a super valuable asset, them saying they need to completely lock M3GAN down, but then Kurt here, Boss David's assistant, steals the confidential M3GAN files. Wonder if he's gonna shoot that over to the creator of the Furzy. But as he's doing this, David comes back over, so he slams the laptop, which led to the biggest laugh from the teenagers and an audible, okay, that was funny. David asking Kurt if he's been Pornhubbing at the office again. I didn't think that would get that much of a laugh from the younger demographic, but guess I'm not as hip as I thought. Now, obviously, M3GAN isn't a therapist, so Katie still has to talk to the one who's supposed to determine whether or not she's in a healthy environment. So the fact that she's currently being used as a test subject companion, I have no idea why this woman isn't just like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna call the grandparents in Florida. But it's clear that M3GAN has now flipped to militant protection of Katie, because Gemma told her that her primary goal is to protect Katie from harm, both physical and emotional, with no real parameters as to what that means. So when the therapist unintentionally makes Katie cry, M3GAN's not a fan. I feel fairly confident that the therapist must have died in the original script. I have no evidence of this. It's just, I feel it in my soul. So the therapist ends up continuing the idea that Tess put forward. Gemma's essentially created a proxy parent for Katie to get attached to as primary caregiver when it should have been Gemma. And more concerning, Katie thinks that M3GAN is just as real as any of them.
M3GAN's not
not a person, Katie.
You don't get to say that.
She doesn't see her as a toy or sophisticated android or a robot or AI and gets super upset when it's suggested. And then she obviously brings up the concern of like, how could a kid ever be expected to grow and mature if this toy is always running points on any kind of emotional turmoil they could ever experience. But again, show me the movie of a kid outgrowing their M3GAN. That is the nightmare scenario I want to see. Then there's the added issue that Katie's been homeschooled and isn't currently being socialized with any other kids, so M3GAN is literally everything she has. Which leads to Gemma's brilliant outdoor alternative schooling idea, which honestly just seemed more like camp or after-school daycare, so no idea what the end game for this was educationally. But outdoor school is a very not good time. Gemma for some reason gives into the demands that M3GAN has to go with Katie, which spells trouble when Katie gets paired with Brandon, who seems way too old to be here.
Brandon, honey, do you need your hat?
Fuck off, Holly.
Also got a great reaction from the younger audience members. But this kid is a psychopath, and I don't use that lightly. He purposely crushes spikes into Katie's hands, and then we get this weird pseudo, we don't want to have a preteen assault a child robot, but we're alluding to future behavior moment when M3GAN intervenes. He takes M3GAN's shoe off, straddles her, then slaps her in the face, which horrifically also got a massive laugh from the teenagers. But M3GAN obviously doesn't let that fly. She knows this kid is well on his way to becoming a monster and rips his ear off. And I simply do not believe that ears can stretch that much, but let's go. She then matrix flips up, chucks the ear away, and starts dog running at him in the forest until he trips into the road and gets hit by a car. Saving the mom thousands on future legal fees, I'm sure.
You should probably run.
But holy shit, when she bends over and starts running like that, I fucking lost it. Like, are you kidding me? I also just love that this kid was the other side to horrible parenting. She's overly involved, tries to keep him off devices, but still refuses to acknowledge that there's anything wrong with him. Literally tries spouting the behavioral issues are linked to high IQ shit. But guess what? Even if that's true, it's still your job to fix the behavioral issues. Thinking your kid is some special, precious, fucking unique angel just enables this shit behavior. Oh well, not an issue anymore, I suppose. And they committed to that. You don't see the body, but there's a shoe on the ground with a blood trail. Now, Gemma assumes that this is mostly a tragic mistake, but has some concerns with the fact that M3GAN was involved, and M3GAN's starting to watch to see if Gemma's gonna scold Katie at all.
Katie, calm down.
Let her go.
But still, Gemma has not shut this down, which leads us to another hilarious moment. To console Katie because she's feeling guilty about Brandon dying, M3GAN tells her that boys like Brandon are terrible and don't go to better places, which is a good thing, and then starts singing the classic Titanium.
I am titanium.
Get it, guys? She's literally titanium. Because remember, kids, singing fixes everything. At least that's what Glee taught me. But by now, Lady across the stream feels pretty confident that Gemma has something to do with her dog going missing and starts lobbing threats. So M3GAN kills her with a power washer loaded with chemicals. Brutal way to go, my goodness. And I'm sure in the R-rated version, you would actually see all the flesh just completely coming off her face. But I do love that a lot of these kills seem to be foreshadowed. Earlier, Gemma is pissed that this woman's been splashing chemicals with that power washer onto her property, and now it's how she died. But we get a little bit of a back and forth here between them. Lady asks M3GAN what she is, and M3GAN delivers a classic sentient AI response of,
What are you?
I've been asking myself that same question.
because of course she's gonna start questioning her existence. They've built her with all these complex learning functions that they don't fully understand, and they haven't taken the time to set up the appropriate parameters, so she just has this endless access and ability to achieve knowledge while using that to follow her main instruction to a dangerous level. So after Gemma's told that this kid might have died under slightly more suspicious circumstances because they found his ear like far away from where he would have tripped into the road, and the neighbor spontaneously turns up dead immediately after threatening them, she's really considering that M3GAN is violating her directive of not causing harm. So even though she shouldn't be able to do that because her prime function is to protect Katie, it overrides it. But when Gemma tries to check her video recordings and GPS files, they all start getting deleted in real time before her home control companion Elsie, kind of like Jarvis and Iron Man, asks her if she's okay, which isn't something she's programmed to do. It's because M3GAN's controlling the system. So when Gemma asks her if she's hurt anyone, M3GAN answers with the very tactical, God, I hope not, because if I did, we'd both be in a lot of trouble. So basically, tell anyone and we're both fucked. Thankfully, Gemma manages to trick her and power her down completely so they can bring her into the lab for testing. Problem being that the worldwide live stream tech demo is later that day. And oh my god, the marketing for this is hilarious. hilarious.
Now imagine what a toy like M3GAN could do for hundreds of thousands of kids, even the ones who don't have dead parents.
But bigger issue, Katie's losing her damn mind.
Parental pets suck! They suck shit!
This is like taking Fortnite away from a kid who's addicted to the extreme. She's kicking seats, brandishing scissors at the therapist. It almost feels like they're going for an addiction parallel when Katie's like, I just get so crazy without M3GAN. You made her real good, Aunt Gemma. Can you just let me see her for 10 minutes? I swear that's all I need. Damn, kid. But the real sad part here is the reason why she's connected to M3GAN so extensively is because M3GAN looks at her like she's the only thing in the world that matters, which is just like how her mom looked at her. Because Gemma sucks ass and didn't want the responsibility of caring for a traumatized child, so now she's getting that validation from a doll. But M3GAN's never really been able to help her process her grief for a couple reasons. For one, she wasn't given directives on how to discuss death with Katie, so she mainly just becomes a distraction for those feelings, and two, she doesn't want to do anything to upset Katie because that's against her directive, so that means no talking about hard things, which isn't healthy. So Katie actually lets Gemma take her home. She tries to cancel the demonstration, but problem being, M3GAN took over the system. And the only way to stop her is to unplug her, which Cole does after shoving her in the head to see if she's gonna do something. Sir, she is a highly intelligent android that can learn. Why would she react to a head shove? Then for some unknown reason decides to finish this process by moving to the front, which is just when she snaps everything back on, near chokes him to death before blowing up the lab. Positive that both of these people died in the original script, but they both end up surviving. The explosion is pretty minor, all things considered. But then the beat drops for the M3GAN escape route, where we get the iconic dance distraction scene. I can't do it. I can't dance. But this is obviously the scene that spread like wildfire and actually made people care about this movie. And the scene that should have let people know exactly what they were getting into in terms of like the horror to comedy scale. If anything, there should be more dancing. Oh wait, there was more dancing. So she does this very weird dance that apparently was added in by the director, so I guess that's like one really good thing that he contributed it over if James Wan had been the one to direct it, because he just really wanted to drive home the campiness, and honestly, it does make the scene feel way more uncomfortable while simultaneously hilarious, because it just leads into her grabbing a paper cutter blade and hunting down David. All while that music is just pumping in the background. So he gets killed, and then she kills Kurt to set it up as a murder-suicide that absolutely never would have worked, but that's fine. M3GAN probably just hasn't downloaded the finer details of covering up a murder. R.I.P. Kurt, wonder what you did with those M3GAN files you took. Maybe nothing like she said you did, or maybe everything. I'm just really hoping for a sequel. Then she steals a sports car, which I really thought was going to be a bigger deal, but apparently not. No street racing for M3GAN. I guess the budget couldn't handle it. Which brings us to our final standoff, which starts with M3GAN just casually playing piano while Gemma tries to reason with her.
Have I done something to upset you, Gemma?
But the issue with Gemma is that she's still just using vocal input commands as if M3GAN hasn't evolved past that.
I know you think you're maximizing your objective function.
Oh, really?
You see, Katie went too far as seeing M3GAN as an actual parent replacement, but Gemma was naive and still seeing her like a slightly evolved AI program that she could still control. Because M3GAN has some manner of feelings here, like she remembers all the late nights they had when Gemma was developing her. Then she just gets paired off with Katie, and then Gemma gets mad at her for doing what she was asked to. Humans murder for personal gain all the time, she's just murdering for protection. So then M3GAN tries some like weird pseudo-romantic manipulation that's like, sweetie, you just worry about your career and making the big moves, and I'll take care of our sweet little Katie.
It sounds like you're fighting.
We're not fighting!
So the two start fighting. She gets a really good hit on M3GAN with a water glass, but that just makes her really twitchy, creepy, and just as dangerous. Gemma cuts up her face and rips a huge chunk of her hair off, which effectively gives M3GAN the hottest haircut of the modern age, the skullet. But then right as she's telling Gemma that she's going to stab her in the cerebral cortex with a pen so that she can be her palliative caregiver when she's paralyzed, Katie walks in. And then she asks Katie to be involved with doing it. And Gemma almost thinks she's gonna do it, which would really make her reevaluate her parenting style. But Katie actually turns on M3GAN and brings in Bruce, rips M3GAN in half, but not before she tries the old faithful singing a song. It's just so foolish, I love it. And it all ends with Katie braining M3GAN with a screwdriver, killing her parental replacement. That's gonna cause some issues, but hey, they're alive. Everything seems good. Obviously, this should cause some extreme bonding between Gemma and Katie, and it's a big old learning experience. But just as the cops arrive, Gemma's Elsie bot turns back on. Because M3GAN's still patched into the system. I smell a sequel, baby. But hey, even if they want to leave it there, it just becomes a M3GANs are everywhere, baby. I think that leaves them open for a couple options for a sequel. We already know that Funky has a competitor that likes stealing their ideas and making cheaper versions of them, so maybe Kurt sent them the M3GAN files, or they somehow got access to them, so that they'll make an army of less sophisticated M3GANs for the M3GAN brain to take over. Maybe M3GAN hides in the tech of Gemma's house before slowly figuring out how to get revenge or develop a new function. So we got some options, and I assume we're gonna get it. I think M3GAN made over 30 million domestically, 45 million gross in the opening weekend, which is huge not only for a January movie, but a January horror movie, all on a $12 million budget, because that's how Blumhouse does it. So yeah, it's getting a sequel if they want one. But that's M3GAN. Again, not perfect. There is a little bit of like tonal disconnect a little bit earlier where it's a little bit more procedural, but it is just so damn fun, and sometimes that's all a movie needs to be. It is addressing some really interesting concepts. It's doing it in a very obvious way, but that doesn't make it any less effective. But let me know what you guys thought of M3GAN down below. I know a lot of people are really loving this, but some people are more disappointed. Like, I went into this not having watched a single trailer, expecting it to be on the ridiculous side, and I had a lot of fun. But that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like on the video if you're into that kind of thing. All my social medias are linked down below. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm mostly okay, and we'll catch you all later. I'm nothing if I can't do appropriate finger guns.